If you clicked on this video, chances are you are looking for an upgrade for your condenser microphone or microphone in general. And if you are looking for that upgrade, you probably came from something like an AT2020, a Rode Pod mic, something in that $100, $150 range. But this one here is really getting closer to that studio level microphone. Studios use the AT4040 all over the place. And it's definitely that price point and that quality that you start noticing higher quality in your audio. So in this video, we will be going over the AT4040 and figuring out if it's the right upgrade for you from where you are to where you're going. Before we get into the AT4040, if you have any questions, comments, or just want to have a conversation about gear or microphones, please leave it down in the comments section down below. If you found this video helpful, leave a like and consider subscribing. So to give you a little introduction to this microphone, it is a large diaphragm condenser microphone by Audio-Technica. In my opinion, it's probably a intermediate level microphone or condenser microphone because it's getting to that point, as I said in the intro, it's getting to that point where you're going to notice increases in quality. And I've said it before, I'm going to say it again here. If you get to that $100 mark, anytime you have that $100 mark with microphones, you gotta wait till you get to the $300, even $400 till you're gonna notice a significant difference. I definitely will not say that it's a high performance condenser microphone, but it's pretty close to a lot of high-end microphones because $100 to $300, you're not really noticing much of a difference. Then when you get to $300, you're $300 to $700, $800, that's not much of a difference, at least from what I've heard and what I've used. Sure, there are outliers that go away from the norm, but in the norm in this market, $300 is your next tier. After that, you get to $700, $800, even $1,000. And the reason why I'm saying it's not a high performance microphone is because it's not a Neumann, it's not a high level AKG. And it's really just a nice workhorse. That's what Audio-Technica in my mind is. It's a nice workhorse brand, and it's like you could just throw it up anywhere in a studio, on a drum set, on an overhead, and it will work. The next thing I'm going to get into is I'm going to recap that video on the AT2020. If you've seen it, cool, that's perfect, awesome. If not, I have the link on the back end of this video. When I did the AT2020 video, I wanted to introduce condenser microphones to some people because the AT2020 is an introductory level condenser microphone. So in that video, I went over 4 main questions. What are you using it for? What is your experience with microphones? What is your budget? And where are you using it? Those 4 main questions probably apply to just about anything you're using, especially with microphones, and you could use those 4 questions when you're buying any piece of gear. So to elaborate a little bit further on who this microphone is for, this is an upgrade. This is an upgrade from somebody who's had a microphone, more in particular the AT2020. This is like its older brother. Yeah, sure, there's the AT2035, there's the AT2050, but in my mind, that's $200 and that's $250, depending on where you get it, and they're not worth the upgrade. If you have an AT2020, don't even waste your time with it. You might as well get this one because this has that extra bit of meat on the bone that it will be worth your upgrade. This isn't knocking those other microphones, but let's just say you get your first microphone's an AT2035 or a 2050. There are pads on it, there's a low cutoff on it, and you need to understand what those things mean before you get into this world. And just having it right off the bat might be a little bit overwhelming for some people. That's why I say the AT2020 is a good first step. If you're using a microphone you're trying to get more serious with voiceovers, or you're trying to get more serious with your singing, or your acoustic guitar, or whatever it may be, this is a microphone that you're going to notice that difference, especially if you come from those lower end microphones. And as I said, this is a $300 microphone, and I think it's packed full of great features and great sound quality for that price. Because you could go down a rabbit hole of finding microphones that are like hundreds, thousands of dollars. But as I said, there's a learning curve. So you got to be very, very careful with how you spend your money. Don't be that person that spends your money on this and then 2 months later you're like, I don't know how to use it, or I don't understand why it's not working that well. Learn, do research, and please just be smart. It's not easy to buy gear and understand that gear all at once. That's why you got to ease yourself into it. If you're looking for this for a podcast style, it's also good to have. It's $300, so maybe you might want to consider an SM7B at the $400 mark if it's in your budget, obviously. Because a lot of people like that broadcast style, but if your voice doesn't match with that's another thing. Every microphone is tuned a certain way. We're gonna get into the build now, but before we get into that, let's give you a little montage of this sexy beast. So there's a montage of how this microphone stands, how it looks, and different scenarios in which you may use it on stands or just in general if you want to hold it. I mean, most of the time you're probably not going to hold it considering they are giving you a shock mount with it. So into the build. I'm a huge fan of the logo on the front. It's a really cool, simple, sexy looking logo, and it really gives it that like stance of classy kind of look. Another thing that stands out is the transparent grille where you could see through to the diaphragm. That's really like a good rugged kind of feel. You see what it's made out of and what goes into this microphone to what it is. I mean, a lot of times people just see a mesh grille and not know what's inside. Sure, you could take it apart, but most of the time that's not a good idea, especially if you have it under warranty and you void the warranty. That wouldn't be good. So it's nice to see that kind of look and that vibe. On the flip side, you're going to have to get a pop filter for this. Unfortunately, the mesh is not enough. It is very susceptible to plosives. Being a condenser microphone, it's even more so, but it's no big deal. Chances are you're not going to be bugged by a pop filter. I have one on right now. This is my favorite one right now. I'll leave a link to that in the description down below. And this one in particular goes well with it because it matches the aesthetic of the microphone. Speaking of the aesthetic, it's full metal body with the XLR port being separate from the whole housing. And it's cool because, as I said in the AT2020 video, I like the separate housing for that because it gives it more security of knowing that the cord is going to stay in there better. Next up, we're going to get into the dimensions and the weight. So starting off, we have a 12.7 ounce or 360 gram for my international people weight for this. And it's definitely nice to have a microphone be suitable for putting on a stand or putting on a boom arm or whatever. I'm holding it on a Blue Compass right now, so it's holding it no problem and it's extended pretty far, so it's nice that it's not drooping or anything like that. Next, we're going into the dimensions. It is 6.69 inches long or 170 millimeters, and it is 2.100, not really necessary, inches or 53.4 millimeters, the maximum body diameter. So there you go. It's not overly huge. It's nice, compact. So to finish off the build, we have two switches on the back. One being a negative 10 dB pad, which basically just reduces the gain into it by 10 dB. The other one is a high pass or a low cut filter switch. Basically, just if you've seen it on an EQ diagram, it curves and brings in that, tucks in that low ends, and low cut means it's cutting the low end, or high pass, which is another name for it. It passes through the higher frequencies. Moving right along to the very popular, at least I'd like to think so, Techy Talk section of the video, where we're going to get into the innards and how this thing works technically, no pun intended. So to start off, this is a cardioid polar pattern. Moving on to the frequency response, we have a frequency response of 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz, or 20 kilohertz, depending on how you want to read it. There's a slight dip in that solid line around 75. Now, obviously, it's not going to be exact because I don't have the exact numbers. I'm just guessing from what I can see here. Then, it's nice because it has a nice steady curve. Well, lack of a curve. It just is plateauing from that 100 to about, let's say about a 3,000 for argument's sake. At the 3,000 mark, between 3,000 and 5,000, it dips ever so slightly, so you're going to get a nice frequency right there, so it doesn't sound too muddy. The other thing that you're going to notice is when you start using it and start editing with it, that flat curve allows you to manipulate it a little bit easier, and you won't. You could avoid that muddy kind of mid-tone that you're trying to avoid. Sometimes you want it, sometimes you don't, so it gives you that option to go either way. At the 5K, it starts to raise right on up and peak around, I'm gonna guess around like 7,000 or 8,000. Then start to dip down and way back down around the 9,000. Then after that starts to go back up and right around 11 or so, and dip off into the high abyss. So that's basically what you're going to see in the tech and the spec sheet. If you want to be more picky with it and want more information, I'll leave a link to the manual or the spec sheet down in the description down below, and you can go check out whatever information that you may need or want to know about. Alright, now we're going to do a little test with the audio to give you some examples of what you may run into when using it. If I was to talk a little bit lower, little Bob Ross, little happy trees, it's going to be like that. And obviously you know what I've been talking with my regular voice. And if we talk a little bit louder, it will be more like that. And that is from 2 inches away from your mouth. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it away, and chances are you're probably not going to use this microphone too far away, so I'm going to do one more example of it being, that's about 2 feet away. So if I'm going to talk a little bit lower, it's going to sound like that. Obviously, this is how it's going to sound when I'm talking normally. And if I talk a little bit louder, it will sound like that. The next thing I'm going to get into is I'm going to engage the switches on the back. So first off, let's do the 10 dB pad. So right now, we have a 10 dB pad engaged on the microphone. And what I'm going to do is, right now you're hearing it just right off the bat. I didn't adjust anything post. This is what it's going to sound like without it. Next, we're going to talk a little bit lower, and you're going to notice that it's probably not heard as well because you're taking away 10 decibels out of the gain. And if we talk a little bit louder, it's going to sound a little bit closer to what it was before, because compensating with your voice by yelling, which is kind of weird. But in scenarios where you may be having a singer scream or your drum set is a little bit like overwhelming, you could throw that on. Now what we're going to do is we're going to turn the 10 dB off, and we're going to engage the high pass / low cut filter. The low cut filter is now engaged, still 2 inches away from my mouth, and what you're going to notice is those low ends are going to be a little less pronounced, and they're not, you're going to hear more of the mids and the highs. It's not going to take it away completely, but you're going to probably notice a significant difference with those low ends. So now we're going to do a little test again. Talking low, talking middle, talking high. So one more thing I'm going to go into with these switches, I'm going to engage both of them. So right now we have a low cut and a negative 10 dB pad. Man, I struggle with that one. And we're talking normally, and you're going to notice a lowering of the decibels, and you're going to notice a lowering of the low ends in pronounced level. So this is what it's going to sound like a little Bob Ross. If Bob Ross had an AT4040, he should have. I missed that man. But you could watch him all the time. There's plenty of places. And if we talk normal, it's going to be like that. And if we talk high, it will sound like that. It's not going to account for every scenario, but it definitely gives you a good earful of what you're going to hear. Alright, so some final points that I'm going to make about this microphone. First off, we're going to get into the accessories that come with it. Really, you're getting 3 quality items out of this. A nice, sturdy, awesome looking microphone shock mount and an awesome looking case, which is really cool. You're going to have to invest in a pop filter, but there are plenty of options, and I'll leave a couple options down in the description. So that is the AT4040 condenser microphone by Audio-Technica. And it's one of my favorite microphones. I don't use it as much as I'd like to because I'm not, the content I'm making right now isn't really for that. But I will try to use it more towards content that I want to use. I could use it for streaming as well, and I'm going to be testing out my YouTube channel, this YouTube channel, for streaming as well, so keep an eye out for that. I'm really seriously considering changing my streaming to YouTube instead of Twitch. So thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed it. If you found this video helpful or anything useful or entertaining, please leave a like. And if you have any questions, comments, just want to start a conversation, you could leave it down in the comments section down below. I'll be happy to answer questions and talk to you guys about microphones, gear, and anything. And if you have any suggestions for videos in the future, please leave them down there as well. So until next time, please be safe, be kind. If you go out, please wear a mask. And yeah, I'll see you next time. All right, ladies.
We better keep moving.
Wet t-shirt contest. I'll be the judge. Jeff is going to just sit there and bleed out.
Let me see.